My name is Ryan Griggs, and I'm the founder of Regenaissance. I wanted to share the backstory behind this apparel brand came to be. Growing up, I'd always struggled with my weight and eating habits. I had the standard American diet, so before school, it'd always be Pop-Tarts, cereal, and all the other garbage that you can imagine. After school, I would gorge myself in chips, soda, and all the other junk food that exists. It didn't take long before this had gone into a full-blown addiction. That changed from the last few years whenever I had a major shift in my view of nutrition and I began thinking long-term. This started at the beginning of the pandemic when I had found out that my brother had stage 3 colon cancer, and I knew if that had ever progressed to stage 4, I would become his caretaker. Unfortunately, that happened, and at the start of 2021, I took the first 6 months off work, and I was his caretaker to where I saw full-blown how cancer is in person. The best way I can describe cancer is I watched my brother be tortured to death over the span of 6 excruciatingly long months. Between cancer, all of the opioids, and all of the chemo treatments, it was horrific to watch. He passed away on June of 21 at the age of 32, 3 days before his 33rd birthday. He's the biggest reason I am the man today, and watching the most important person in my life suffer like that, knowing full well all I could do is just watch, was one of the worst feelings in the world. He is my inspiration. How he handled that was nothing short of incredible, and it is why I do everything and share everything for Regenaissance. But that just didn't end there, because my mother had issues spanning back years to where she had to retire from her job in 2019 because of her health. She had shingles, gout, and sleep apnea, but much worse. Coronary artery disease, the most common form of heart disease. Her kidneys and liver were failing, and she needed transplants for both, but she was deemed inoperable because of her heart condition. 4 to 5 different times she had to get 2 liters of fluid drained from her lungs, and it was excruciatingly painful to watch her also suffer. My brand launched on May 28th at noon Central. 4 hours later, I got a call that my mother had passed away. The stress of the trauma of helping my brother definitely destroyed my body as well, along with my mother, and I began having my own health issues after my brother died. I'd spent thousands of dollars trying to get answers from the medical system, and I got zero. Blood tests, stool tests, endoscopies, and colonoscopies, yet still couldn't figure out anything. As a result of this PTSD, my gut was in shambles and I was dealing with zero energy, not waking refreshed, awful memory, joint inflammation, and so many other problems. During all this, I was working on a regenerative farm trying to learn about something that was foreign my whole life because I'd been so disconnected. It wasn't until everything with my brother and mother that woke me up to just how awful our health, our healthcare, our agriculture systems have become in America. I still didn't have the answers that were going on with how laborious farming was. My health was only getting worse and I actually had to leave the farm. Luckily, I had found help independently and was able to discover my issues, which were deficiencies in a lot of vitamins and minerals, but more importantly, I discovered I had Hashimoto's, a more severe version of hypothyroidism, and explained everything with my health issues. 1 week before I was supposed to start on a bison ranch in Montana on January of 2022, I had the worst health scare of my life and ended up in the ER twice in the same day. I knew the quickest way to get answers was to go back to Austin, Texas. And while I was recovering, I had an idea for an apparel brand because we humans are traveled by nature. And this is why I started the Regenaissance, because in 2016, chronic diseases from overweight to obese cost $480 billion in direct healthcare costs. And you can only imagine now in 2024 what that would be like. I don't wish what I've gone through my worst enemy. But what's unfortunate is this is becoming a more and more common story in America where 75% of America is overweight, obese, or severely obese. And that trend is only getting worse. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is now prevalent in 5 to 10% of children. And ages 15 to 19, it's 17.3%. This is so alarming because it's caused by all of the ultra-processed garbage that's in our food now, where 66% of kids' diets are ultra-processed food. It's disgusting. And this is why Regenaissance preaches about knowing your farmers and ranchers. There really aren't a lot of people trying to bridge this ever-widening gap. Each farm and ranch have their own brand, but outside of that, there's not a lot of cool-looking apparel. In comes the Regenaissance, where everything we make is derived from natural fibers and with the long-term goal of 100% American-made, 100% organic. Not only that, I want this to be a movement around education and awareness, because I've realized we're going back to how we used to eat with our ancestors, a more animal-based diet that includes more nutrient-dense foods from nose to tail, bone broth, collagen, etc. I want to push back to all these agendas pinning animal agriculture on climate change. And I want you to understand that raw milk is not the enemy, but actually it's what we should be consuming. I want folks to develop relationships with their local farmers and ranchers, how it's been for the majority of our history. I understand this is a tough task, especially when most Americans will never really switch their ways. But let's put numbers to it. There are 340 million Americans. So if Regenaissance can help 1% of Americans long-term with this, that's 3.4 million Americans. And not only that, a lot of these folks will have their own children, changing the trajectory of their bloodline. This is what I care about, the folks that will make changes in the long run for themselves, their families, and their future families. Vive la Regenaissance!